Oh, am I here? I am here. Hello. All right. Good morning. It's January 27th, 2025. Yes, you are on this timeline. I still blame the Higgs boson collider or the Hadron collider, the Higgs boson particle, and the reason that we're here. I'm still waiting for someone to show up and restart this whole thing. But time will tell if that's just a fever dream too. I'd like to start off every week with a quote, and a very apropos quote for this week comes to us from Tolkien. And it's not so much a quote as it is a bit of dialogue between two main characters. And I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf. And so do all who lived to see such times. But it is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what we have to do with the time that is given us. So, something to think about today as you wander through the halls of Moria, trying to avoid Balrogs and goblins. That it's how we react to things and how we deal with what we're given, more so than the lot that we're drawn. Because I have seen people very content with what other people would see as an insult. I've seen people see insulting amounts of affection seen as the biggest reward in that's ever existed. Like, again, one man's trash. So flip it, look at it a different way. And I know that sounds like toxic positivity, but it's not. It's just good design practice. So if you can't figure out how it works, flip it over. Turn it upside down. I had one of those crazy parents that literally would take my math page and flip it upside down and tell me to look at the problem another way, which is probably the way that I am. But also Fidget's help. Okay, so want to talk about news. We talk about a new day. We talk about news stories. What is in the news? Lots of stuff in the news today. Thank you for joining us on Twitch. I see that Twitch has popped up, so thank you. Lots of stuff in the news today when it comes to disability, obviously, with everything that has been going on internationally. So, some interesting news. Some people will see this as good. Others may not. I know lots of people who will, but Autism Speaks is shuttering its doors in our neighbor up north. The controversial and widely criticized organization Autism Speaks has announced that it will shut its doors in its Canada operations at the end of January this year. The decision marks an end of nearly 2 decades of work in Canada, where the group has faced significant backlash from autistic self-advocates who argue that its messaging promotes ableism and perpetuates harmful cure culture. Now, they have generated $2.8 million in revenue, and that's down from $5.5 million in 2020. Autism Speaks claims that its closure is not due to financial issues, but rather strategic considerations. The organization has stated that its partners in Canada are now equipped to continue autism-related initiatives. And again, it works with the National Autism Strategy in Canada, research institutions like McGill, and the Hospital for Sick Children. But I think this is really social pressure, right? So for years, Autism Speaks has been a lightning rod for criticism. Many autistic people and advocacy groups point out that the lack of autistic representation in its leadership and accuse the organization of framing autism as a tragedy to be eradicated rather than a neurodivergent identity to be embraced. Its marketing campaigns have historically used fear-based tactics, portraying autism as a burden to families rather than focusing on acceptance and inclusion. And this is true. While Autism Speaks Canada has provided some resources and community grants, autistic-led organizations in Canada and the US emphasize that meaningful progress comes from centering the voices of autistic people themselves, not from organizations that push ableist narratives and treat autism as a problem to be solved and people as a puzzle piece. As Autism Canada, or as Autism Speaks exit Canada, the hope amongst many in the autism community is that Canadian institutions will prioritize true, inclusive, neurodiverse, and neuroaffirming focused initiatives moving forward. Such initiatives that would celebrate autism as a natural part of human diversity rather than something to be cured, eradicated, or eliminated. So, again, our neighbors to the north have been able to put enough social pressure to again um, hasten the exit of that organization. I would like to see at least that pressure applied here in the States. And I know there are lots of people doing good work out there, but I think it's going to need to be top down, not just bottom up. So, some more disability news. The outgoing Department of Ed highlights inequities amongst disabled students. In a recent report, the U.S. Department of Education unveiled significant disparities affecting students with disabilities in public schools. Data collected from over 17,000 school districts during 2021-2022 indicate that while students with disabilities constitute 14% of the public school population, they represent a disproportionate percentage of disciplinary actions. Shocking. Specifically, these students account for 29% of out-of-school suspensions and 24% of expulsions. Alarmingly, in preschool settings, 41% of suspended children and 74% of expelled young learners are served under the IDEAS, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This report also highlights that students with IEPs make up 25% of those referred to law enforcement or arrested at school. Additionally, these students comprise 28% of those subjected to mechanical restraints, 68% of seclusions, and 76% of physical restraints. That is alarming when you think 14% and then you extrapolate that out. Crazy. So the outgoing Secretary of Education emphasized the need for continued vigilance, stating the newly released data show that we cannot be complacent. The inequities in school access based on race, sex, and disability persist. So these are the reports that were just released 2 weeks ago. Ooh, so no, that's freaking sad. There's no other way to talk about that, but that's just freaking horrible. Again, when we talk about inequities and we talk about math and statistics and numbers, those numbers don't lie, and they show a real problem. Now, I know that I'll be getting some training. I believe in June, there's a week in June, I'm going to be taking some training with the county for the intermediate school district for special education as a program to remove seclusion and restraint. And it's a Japanese program, supposedly astonishing numbers. But again, they always tout these numbers until you actually implement these programs. So I will have more about that coming up. Likewise, tomorrow I start my NeuroAffirming parenting training in Ireland. So I'll be able to offer that training for free. Again, we're just going to be asking that people donate what they can for that training, but I'll be offering that training for parents and groups. So if you know of a group or an organization that is interested, please let me know. So one more piece of news that I want to get on people's radar. SCOTUS is going to hear a 504 case. The U.S. Supreme Court is set to hear the AJT versus Osseo area schools, and this case could significantly impact how disability rights claims are handled in schools nationwide. The case involves a Minnesota student with severe epilepsy whose family alleges that the school district failed to provide necessary accommodations. Basically, what was happening is that the seizures are really bad in the morning. The student could not come to school till noon. The school district said, well, we'll cover her from noon till 3, and then she's on her own. And the parents said, no, she needs an equitable school day. And so the courts ruled that, yes, they needed to educate her for equitable time. And the school district fought back. And so now it's going to the Supreme Court. At the heart of the case is whether students with disabilities must prove that schools acted in, quote, bad faith or with gross misjudgment, end quote, to claim violations. So again, this is asking the court to reaffirm what currently exists. Okay, and I like to point this out to people, that in order to prove discrimination, you have to show that they acted in bad faith or with gross misjudgment. It can't just be that you were discriminated against. It can't just be that you sat at the bottom of the stairs during the fire drill. It has to be that they did so with gross misjudgment or bad faith. Again, I've sat in faculty meetings where I've asked, what happens during the fire drill with the students in the wheelchair? And I was told, quote, not by people who I currently work for because these people are long gone, but I quote, we'll worry about that when it happens. Or so I say. Jesus Christ. I can't even, it boggles my mind. So this ruling could establish a critical precedent for how schools are held accountable in ensuring equal access and accommodations for students with disabilities. Again, this is not just a problem in this particular Minnesota school district or in any K-12 college, whatever. It's really a nationwide thing. In order to be able to prove that I was discriminated against as a disabled person, I basically have to show that you did so because you just hate me. And the burden of proof there is a little heavy lift. Okay. So crazy shit. Crazy shit. That is the fun news. No good news. Some good news, I guess. In the Canadian story, some good news in that SCOTUS will hear this case. And I really do think that the one good thing about SCOTUS hearing this case is they're probably going to rule on the side of parents. However, this may not be good in the long run. It may be good in the short term. Just honest opinion. So time for new stuff. We talked about new day. We talked about new news. Now new things. Always. Fidgets. But I wanted to talk today about where to get these. Because a lot of people don't know that. I mean, these are quiet fidgets, right? And sometimes you need a good quiet fidget. And I am a huge fan. And I've got them everywhere. I've got 2 sitting there. I've got 3 on the other side of the room. I have 2 in my bag, 1 in my backpack, a couple in my car, because when they get frozen, they're all awesome. But these neatos, we've got the gumdrop. We've got the gem. Or no, this isn't the gem. This is, I can't remember which one this one is. Glitter, sparkle, or something. The gem is upstairs. I don't like the gem as much as my girls do. And then my favorite, the ice cube. I see you, Steve. Go ahead. Report me.
Let's do it, everybody.
These are my absolute favorite. And you can get these at Walmart. The best part is that there's a whole like fidget wall at Walmart. They have them also at the other various department stores, and I even found them at the Ace Hardware in my mother-in-law's town, a very small little podunk Ace Hardware in the middle of mid-Michigan, and they have some of the best Nido collections. So this one, again, it's got its own base. It's got a little sticky base. It kind of gives it, but you can see it's this kind of translucent egg. You've got the wonderful cube. But I also wanted to talk about, because a lot of people like these, but they don't like them after a certain time because they get gross. So I wanted to give you a little tip today. And this is not from Mr. Escobar. This is cornstarch. This is a bag of cornstarch. I basically put a tablespoon of cornstarch in a bag, ruffled it around a bit so that it gets on the edge. And I have to sometimes recharge this cornstarch bag, but you just drop the knee dough in there, right? You get a little bit of cornstarch on it. You can, if you get too much on there, just grab another one, right? Just rub them all together. Bam. And you've got yourself a nice recharged. And if you don't like it all sticky and nasty and gross, it recharges it for you. And again, it's like clean, it's soft, it has that, that wonderful pull. And your hands are not all gross and sticky and nasty, because that's the wonderful thing about these things, is that they're fabulous fidgets. But the bad part about these are, if you have sensory aversion issues, these can be horrible fidgets. So again, well marked, I carry a small bag of cornstarch on me in my fidget stuff. And again, it may cost me a couple hours at one point, but I would rather, literally, I'd rather have my fidget on hand than be dysregulated, because that could cost me time in the long run when you get dysregulated. The other good thing that I found on all of the places is the 2025 time visualizer. And again, I know that planners are the banes of a lot of people's existence, and mine included. This one does have dated months. There are ones that you can buy with undated months. But what I like is that all the weeks with a 24-hour planner are undated. So I can use this. If I forget about this for a couple years and come back to this, I can still use this. But the best part is that it starts at 1 a.m, starts after midnight. For 1 to 7, just have 1 hour blocks. But then when you get from 7 to midnight, each block is a half hour. So, you can visually see the entire day, but you don't have to allot, because that's the one thing that I don't like. I like the balance of a planner, but I don't like the fact that they start at arbitrary times, because my ass gets up at 2:00 in the morning sometimes. Like, I will plan to go to bed at 8:00 so that I can get up at 3:00, because I have a meeting in Europe, or I have someone I have to talk to in Southeast Asia. So I like this. This is great. And especially for the 21st century, where people are living virtually, having to deal with multiple time zones. I help run an organization that is now, we were in 4 different time zones. No, we were in 5 different time zones, and now we're still in 4 different time zones. Yeah, it's a good thing to have control of that day. And I remember, as being an early parent, or not an early parent, my early days as a parent, I remember, especially these winter days, when you wake up from a nap or maybe sleep or whatever, and the clock says 6:30. Is that 6:30 p.m. or 6:30 a.m.? Because it's dark both times. This is winter. This is Michigan. What the shit? So I like having that day long, and I do use digital calendars. I basically will take my digital calendar and I will transcribe it to that written thing, and then I'll have the written visual planner so that I write things in there, and then I transcribe it to my digital calendar so that my family knows it and all of my people know it. But that act of writing helps my brain remember. That act of writing connects me to that, and basically allows me to file it and forget it. And the redundancy helps my executive dysfunction, because I didn't realize before before a couple years ago, how much time I spent remembering my car keys are here, my wallet is here, I got my glasses, I got this, I got that. Like running through checklists 24/7. And remembering, his name was Bob. Don't call him Jim. Don't call him Jim. Call him Bob. Like the entire conversation. Look at his face. Smile. Make sure you make eye contact. Is a handshake too? Oh God, why are they looking at me like that? Oh, do you hear that? I hear that. Do you hear that? I hear that. Going through your head, right? And so just like the people on TikTok got to see me stimming before this broadcast, there's a lot that goes on to get regulated and stay regulated that for a long time I was not aware of. And so I just want to remind people that just because it's old or analog, like writing something down or having a physical watch, that may be what your brain needs, especially if you're an old fogey like myself that you learned on the analog. One of my big things that caused my burnout was the fact that employee rules and regulations are no longer written down. They're no longer printed out. There's no longer a book that you can go to and go, here's the rule. They say it's on the website. And then you go on the website and there are 3 different rules on the website because they haven't updated the website and they haven't killed the archive and they haven't done all the other shit that you're supposed to do to maintain a website and to make it manageable, and you can't find anything. And then when you ask for clarification, they're like, well, it's on the website. And you're like, yes, I know, but I can't find it. And they're like, well, go find it. And it becomes a circle. And I ran that circle for about 10 years before I burned out. Because I had learned analog. I had learned through written. And that saved me in college. Having that written catalog and being able to go to my advisor and say, no, I came to college in 1995. This is the prerequisite list that I agreed to. This is the prerequisite list that you said I had to follow. And they literally said, oh, you're right. I got hired like 2 years after that. I've never seen that prereq list. But because I had the printed catalog, I had physical proof. And Ohio University was like, yep, you're right. So I'm a big proponent of having that written word in print, mainly because that was how I had learned to adapt to this non-autistic world. Was, well, if I've got it in writing, I can at least point to it and go, but you said, and they'll go, you're right. Because that is how it's happened. Now, again, that hasn't always been the rule. That hasn't always been the case. Because teachers will have rules on the wall and you go, but teacher, that's the rule. And they say, I don't freaking care. You're still going to detention, kid, you smart aleck bastard. That was a lot of my middle school. But having it written used to be something. Now it's all nebulous and literally could be changed like that. So it bothers me. It bothers me a bit. So write that shit down, print it out. What do you think, Travis?
Let's do it, everybody.
Exactly. Let's do it, everybody. Okay. Now for a little news segment I wanted to share with you called Mr. AJ's Special Place in Hell Award. And Mr. AJ has given the Special Place in Hell Award honorable mention this week. Honorable mention is to Leo Giovoni or Govoni or Govoni, whatever the hell his name is. A federal judge has found him liable for $122 million for stealing from the Center for Special Needs Trust Administration in St. Petersburg, Florida. The nonprofit is now closed because of Mr. Leo's shenanigans, including a $100 million loan that the nonprofit extended. You should never extend loans to anybody who works for you if you run a nonprofit, called the Boston Finance Group. Now, this was after he resigned. He resigned from the board, and then they loaned him $100 million. The loan was sourced from trusts established from individuals with conditions such as Down syndrome, epilepsy, and the like. And basically what this does is you put money in this trust, and this trust then is supposed to grow that money so that you can live off of it. So long-term disabled people totally stole their life savings, and the borrower's funds were never fully repaid. So Mr. Giovoni did earn a special place in hell, and Judge Roberta Colton of the Middle District of Florida issued a summary judgment against him, enabling bankruptcy trustee Michael Goldberg to pursue his assets in order to recover the missing funds. A temporary restraining order has been placed to prevent him from liquidating assets from more than his 100 associated companies, including Big Storm Brewing, a craft beer enterprise in Clearwater that he operates with his son. So if you're in Clearwater, Florida, go to Big Storm Brewing and tell them to pay their freaking bills because they stole $122 million from the disabled people of Florida. This ruling coincides with an ongoing FBI investigation into the center's financial activities. The court action aims to ensure that assets potentially acquired with misappropriated trust funds are preserved as efforts to continue to rectify the substantial financial discrepancies affecting numerous individuals reliant upon these funds. No shit. Disabled people are having a hard time regaining the lost assets that this jackwagon stole from them because they're legally second-class citizens who, if they had enough money to hire a lawyer, would not be on disability anymore. Because that's our system. That's our system. But this motherfucker, I'm sorry to swear, but this guy only got the honorable mention because we all know who got the real Special Place in Hell award this week when it comes to disability, in the way in which he has set back disability and human rights for decades. Don't need to mention him. Don't want to Voldemort him anywhere near us. So I think you know who I'm talking about. He has a penchant for Roman salutes. I just want to kind of remind everybody about our kind of guiding principle at Humanities 101 as an organization, and that we focus on giving everybody a snack, making everybody a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And we often utilize this metaphorically. We don't physically hand out peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because of, obviously peanut allergies, but metaphoric peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I even hand out peanut butter and jelly sandwich pins. Need to find somebody to print me off some 3D printed ones. But it's that idea that when people are hangry, having a bad day, sometimes making them a snack can help, and that you can't always prevent dysregulation, but you can offer somebody a snack. And when we think about all of the stuff that is going on in the world, it works different ways. And when I thought about PB&J, I also thought about the way in which we can protect and take care of ourselves. And so I want you to remember PB&J going forward, because these are the things that help us as humans. Self-care, obviously, but a lot of people talk about when you're fighting injustice and equities and things like that you have to purify. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, even Thoreau talked about self-purification, a time of reflection and thinking about, what do I want to do? What am I willing to do? What are the lines that will be crossed? Because you need to flex that muscle. You need to think about, what are the lines? This is why in philosophy class, we ask you those questions about trains and loaves of bread and things like that, because you have to exercise that muscle. If you've never succeeded in achieving a pull-up, you don't know what that feels like in your muscles. So, but once you've done it, you have that muscle memory, right? And so it's that practice. So purification and self-care is all part of protection. So make sure that you protect yourself. And building community now is the butter of the peanut butter, because if you haven't been doing this, you need to make sure that you know your neighbors, see if they need anything, check in on them, get to know them, the person up in the apartment above you, the person below you. That can be the difference in getting through times. I know that even my parents, the way in which they build community, I know that if there ever comes a day where they don't wake up from sleep, I will know about it long before someone stumbles upon them, because their neighbors will contact me and say, hey, the newspaper's on the front porch. Hey, the curtains haven't been pulled. Hey, we haven't gotten a welcome in 2 days. What's going on? They'll notice something's up. So make sure that you build community and that you're talking to people around you, even if it's just a wave or a thumbs up or one of them mountain Appalachian head nods. We do that where I come from. We do the every man has to show the inside of his nose to every other man. It's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Okay. And lastly, if you have networks, if you know of different organizations, groups, people, and you think, hey, they serve a common purpose. Hey, they have similar goals. Get them together, introduce them, be the line between the two worlds and say, I mean, you don't have to orchestrate anything other than the meeting. Hey, let's get together and have a cup of coffee. I'd really think you'll be interested in my friend Joe. He's like-minded. I'll buy a cup of coffee, and sometimes you may be able to just peace out in the middle of the conversation because you get the two people talking and then you're just like, you guys good? All right. Now, again, I know with autistic people, it's a little different. But make sure that you consider getting those networks together. Um, and now, if you want to utilize, social events, public events to network and meet some people, there are some events coming up. Ho! And of course, I'm going to stop the music here. Wait, so I can hear myself. Come on. What the hell, Bob Barker? All right, there we go. So, a couple events coming up in April. One of the events on campus, Henry Ford College campus, in the Walter P. Reuther Liberal Arts Building in room 014 in the basement, in smack dab in the middle of Autism Empowerment Awareness Acceptance, whatever you want to call it, month. April 16th at noon. We'll be talking about autism myths explained, looking at the various myths around autism and talking about some of the facts. Now, that is just a kind of different version of a similar lecture or discussion that I'll be having at the Grand Blanc McFarland Library on Tuesday, April 15th, the night before the Autism Myths lecture, but this one's in metropolitan Flint. So if you are in the Flint area or the Detroit area, you can catch one of these. If you are interested and you need further information, feel free to email info@humanities101.org. But all of the information can be found on our website and the various websites of like the Genesee District Library or even Henry Ford, if you need directions. But I'd be happy to help you with that if you want to email. So again, some shameless plugs, but these are good places to build community, and that's totally why I do this. The reason I have these discussions is so that we can build community and that we can discuss and we can network. And I've been trying to utilize people who come back to multiple events to build out this community. So we're trying to get events that right now. There will be one on the west side of Michigan. There will be one in the Metro Detroit region, and we're trying to get one in the Metro Flint region. So we're trying to hit Grand Blanc, Flint, and Detroit. And so we've been doing a pretty good job with our outreach, even to the point where we are now officially on both peninsulas in this country. We're in Michigan and we're in Florida. We have done outreach all the way out to the West Coast. We've been in the Four Corners, but I want to have meaningful impact over wide stretching, right? I would rather have quality over quantity. So if you know of an organization, a group, a place that could use a little education in April about autism, myths, uh, neurodiversity, neuroaffirmation, I have references. I have spoken with fairly large groups. I've spoken with fairly small groups. The image here is me going to a local classroom, talking to a future teachers group, pro bono. A lot of these groups, I will tell them to donate what they can to the foundation, and I will come and speak. And I leave it up to them because for me, it's a mission, and for them, it's a write off. And so it's a win-win for both of us. So going forward, I just want to remind you, right? PB&J, you can't always help somebody you can't always prevent somebody being marginalized, but you can bring them a snack. So remember, protect yourself, build that community, and grab that third line, man. Connect those networks. It might be a bit shocking. It might raise your hair a bit. Remember, people like to shoot the messenger, but I think it's needed. And I think based upon who won the Mr. AJ's Special Place in Hell Award this week, I think it's needed worldwide. We need to remember what makes us human, and what got us out of the freaking caves was not brute force, was not unalive your neighbor for their crust of bread, but it was the group hunt. It was coming together collectively to take down a bigger prey than we ever could individually so that we could feed everyone. And that's what made the difference. And I know this to be true based upon what I do professionally and the research that I have done academically. If we don't figure that out, if we don't realize that the thing that makes us great is the thing that makes us a group, well, in the grand scheme of scientific history, the group hunt will never have existed because we'll be fossils. And I do take solace in that. I take solace in the fact that Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park was right. It will find a way, with or without us. And so we need to consider that going forward, and we need to think about that as in our interactions with other people, especially today, especially this week, especially going forward. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope you all out there, if you have questions, if you have concerns, and I know that, there'll be students waiting until this last moment and going, wait, but he didn't give us a question to answer this week for participation. I waited until now. I would like to know your favorite pizza topping. So in the chat here on the Tubes of You, I would like you to drop your favorite pizza topping. Pineapple is acceptable. I will accept broccoli. Honestly, I'll accept any pizza topping because I've got a crab rangoon pizza that I just think is to die for. And I'll fight you that crab and chili sauce do belong on a pizza. So drop your favorite pizza topping in the chat. And I will see you all next week, 9 a.m. Eastern, for the NeuroAffirming discussion hour. And we'll see what's new in the world of disability news, design news, and hopefully all things good. We'll bring back some Mr. Rogers and a little less Dick Dastardly. All right. All right. YouTube land, Twitch land, LinkedIn land, Facebook land. See, Zuckerberg. Anyway, sorry. Oh, have a good one. All right, let's end this stream and end that stream, and then